Okay, good evening. I think it's time to get started. So, welcome. Thank you all for being here. I always love it when I meet new people, and I so appreciate the citizens of our community and their interest and being involved in local government and listening both in person and online. So, welcome. As we get started this evening, before we offer the prayer and pledge, I'd like to mention a couple things. One, we lost a couple of citizens in the last week that were very key citizens in our downtown, Dave Lancaster and Darlene Johnson. And, sometimes life is challenging and surprising. And it just it makes you realize how much we appreciate the people that make things happen in our community, both of which were very engaged for a long period of time in our downtown as business owners. And anyway, so I just wanted to pause and make mention of them and remember them, especially as we open with a word of prayer. On a more positive note, I did want to say happy birthday to Hubert Osborne, who I said I would do that, but I said we won't make you sing. So happy birthday, Hubert.
He's only 29, right?
Mm-hmm. And Larry, thank you for mentioning it. You were on spot. So I'd like to thank Oscar Diaz with Karcher Church of the Nazarene for joining us this evening. He will open us in prayer, and then we will follow with the pledge, and let's all stand.
Lord, we are grateful that you are the kind of God that hears our prayers, both spoken and unspoken. At this time, would you just spark a kind of creativity and focus to this wonderful people gathered here today, so that we might do the task to the best of our capability? Would you kindle a passion in our hearts to love and serve people just like you do? Lord, give us vision so that we might see the areas that need improvement, and give us the ears to hear the voiceless and those that cry out in our community. Lord, you are the giver of gifts. Teach us to leverage our gifts to benefit the greater community of Nampa and not our own self-agenda. For we have not gathered to socialize or even drink coffee or to elevate our own interests, but we have gathered because we understand that if we are going to ever elevate this city to its highest potential, it's going to take a team to do it. Lord, bless our time and our work. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Oscar. I appreciate that. Well, let's start with roll call.
Rodriguez,
Here.
Bruner,
Here.
Hogeboom,
Here.
Levi,
Present.
Haverfield,
Here.
and Skog.
Here.
The next thing would be any proposed amendments to the agenda. Council, do you have any? The only one that I've heard about is that we have, Nate, where are you? Is Nate here? Nate, did we have an item that we had thought about pushing up this evening that I heard of?
Mayor, possibly the
Action item, new business, 6.
-6.
Okay. Would council mind if we move 6 up a little bit in the agenda after we get through the beginning agenda items? I think it's because we have a consultant that's having to just, is sitting, waiting. Would that be okay?
It's fine.
Okay. Perfect. So at that, I would stand for a motion to approve our consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Bruner,
Yes.
Hogeboom,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Skog,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Haverfield.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a couple of proclamations this evening, and we're going to start with the first proclamation, which is National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And I will start by reading that proclamation. Whereas David's Hope Pregnancy Loss Ministry and other nonprofit organizations comfort grieving parents who have experienced the death of a child during pregnancy through early childhood, and whereas many of these parents live in, deliver in, have a child die in, and bury a child in our community. And David's Hope Pregnancy Loss Ministry was founded to support parents whose child or children have died from miscarriage, ectopic pregnancy, molar pregnancy, stillbirth, neonatal birth, sudden unexplained death of a child, sudden infant death syndrome, birth defects, illness, accident, and all other types of infant and early childhood death. And whereas bereaved parents around the world remember their children annually on October 15th with a candle lighting at 7 p.m. Some will remember their child or children in their homes, while others will remember them in small gatherings around the state, across the nation, and around the world. Whereas this remembrance and awareness would unify these parents and the community in tribute to their children. And whereas in 1988, President Ronald Reagan proclaimed October as National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. Whereas in honor of the thousands of children that die each year in Idaho, David's Hope Pregnancy Loss Ministry requests that October 15, 2018 be recognized as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day. Now therefore, I, Debbie Kling, Mayor of the City of Nampa, Idaho, do hereby proclaim October in the City of Nampa as National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And here to speak, give us a few words on this is Randy Jackson with David's Hope.
Mayor Kling, members of the City Council. First of all, thank you for giving us a few moments of your time this evening. As you stated, my name is Randy, and I'm here representing David's Hope. This month is a very meaningful month for both my wife and I, and for all of our board of directors as well. For my wife and I, this Wednesday is the 10th anniversary of our first miscarriage. It's a day that forever changed our life. We went from being very ignorant of the reality of pregnancy loss to a full-fledged member of a tragic society, a secret club of sorrow hidden in the shadows. We went from not knowing anyone who had been through miscarriage to knowing more people than we could count overnight. In fact, we found out that 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in miscarriage and stillbirth. It was a shock to us in more ways than one, and a shock that eventually opened our eyes to a need in our community. To many families were just like us, suffering in silence, burying their grief, broken and in need of healing. With this reality in mind, David's Hope was born. We now have served families throughout the United States and several countries, including Australia, Canada, England, Scotland, and Pakistan. We serve through counseling, memory boxes, support groups, memorial service planning, and most importantly, giving both a listening ear and a voice to the countless families that have suffered through this tragedy of losing a baby too soon. This year has been especially precious to us, with Mayor Kling and Councilwoman Sandy Levi working with us to help bring awareness to the community about pregnancy loss, and by offering to the citizens of Nampa and throughout the state a memorial area, a place to come for prayer, meditation, comfort, and healing. We cannot tell you how grateful we are for this. We are very grateful to all involved in making this happen. We do have a small gift for members of City Council. I think some of you have already gotten them. If you haven't, I can hand it to you when I'm done here in just a second. It's just some information about our organization and a small rattle pin that we would ask that you would wear if you could for this upcoming week, just as a show of support for the members of the community, for those who have been through pregnancy loss. Sorry. Also, we would ask that if you can attend the memorial dedication service this Saturday morning at Kohler Lawn at 10 a.m. Finally, we want to encourage anyone here who may have lost a child to miscarriage or stillbirth that you're not alone in your grief. Please know that your city supports you, and we are grateful for that again. And if there's any way that David's Hope can serve you, we are available with support groups that meet on the first Tuesday of every month, and memory boxes, memorial service planning, and more. Please feel free to reach out to us. We would love to help anyone that we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think I've got it.
I got it.
Thanks.
Randy, thank you again. Thank you. We have another proclamation this evening, and it's Cybersecurity Month. And I'll read the proclamation, and then we will have Pam Stratton, who's our security analyst with our city IT department, come up and share with us ever so briefly. So whereas the city of Nampa recognizes that it has a vital role in identifying, protecting its citizens from and responding to cyber threats that may have significant impact to our individual and collective security and privacy, and whereas critical infrastructure sectors are increasingly reliant on information systems and technology to support financial services, energy, telecommunications, transportation, utilities, healthcare, and emergency response systems. And whereas the Stop, Think, Connect campaign serves as the national cybersecurity public awareness campaign implemented through a coalition of private companies, nonprofit, and government organizations, as well as academic institutions working together to increase the understanding of cyber threats and empowering the American public to be safer and more secure online. And whereas the National Institute of Standards and Technology cybersecurity framework has been developed as a free resource to help organizations, large and small, both private and public, improve their cybersecurity practices through a practical approach to addressing evolving threats and challenges. And whereas maintaining the security of cyberspace is a shared responsibility in which each of us has a critical role to play, and awareness of computer security essentials will improve the security of the City of Nampa, information, infrastructure, and economy. And all citizens are encouraged to visit these websites along with the Stop, Think, and Connect campaign website, which is Stop, Think, Connect or stopthink.com, or it's gov and then stopthinkconnect.org, to learn about cybersecurity, to put that knowledge into practice in their homes, schools, workplaces, and businesses. Now, therefore, I, Debbie Kling, Mayor of the City of Nampa, Idaho, do hereby proclaim October in the City of Nampa as Cybersecurity Month. And Pam Stratton, would you like to come forward? And I have the proclamation for you, and share with us just a moment about our cybersecurity. Thank you for the work that you do. Pam is the one in our city that makes sure that we're on target.
It's a team effort, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, City Council, I want to thank you for signing the proclamation and recognizing October as National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Cybersecurity is a critical issue and affects all of us in some form, whether it be your kids or yourself surfing the internet, social engineering using malicious emails or text messages, or even what you post on your Facebook that you think is only visible to your family and friends. It is not just a single month commitment, but needs to be something we promote and communicate throughout the year. Your city IT and HR teams are working on training courses and events for the employees, as well as cybersecurity events and presentations for the citizens of Nampa with the assistance of other departments such as the library. Again, I want to thank you for your support and willingness to acknowledge and lead in the ongoing need for cybersecurity. I will now entertain any questions if anybody has any.
He's
Pam,
awake.
thank you for your oversight of our cybersecurity.
You're welcome. You
With
got
our-
$20 for doing that, by the way.
I would have held out for more.
That was great. This next section of our meeting is where a Nampa resident that would like to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item has that opportunity. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item this evening? And I don't see anyone this evening. So seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is Nampa, let's see if I can get my mouth to work tonight. Mayor and council comments. And one of the comments I had was just the number of speakers. And as you will see for council, that I made a little bit of a change to our agenda, which is limiting the number of persons. And I was just curious if that meets with your approval, or if you have any suggested changes to that, or if we should just go ahead and leave that on there. What we did was we changed it to say Nampa residents and wishing to speak on an agenda, with a limit of 5 persons on an agenda item and 5 persons on a non-agenda item with the 3-minute limit. So any thoughts from council? Are we good?
Mayor,
Yes.
I was wondering first off why we would be limiting the number. What was the thought process behind that?
The thought process just had to do with keeping it, maintaining, we've never had any more than 5, but if ever you had a large contingency that wanted to come in, you know how sometimes in a public hearing, if it's a public hearing and you try to reduce the number, right, and choose 1 or 2 people to speak on their behalf, because otherwise we could get into a whole evening of public comment, which that was not the intent of adding that to the agenda. And so just putting in limits in case we needed to.
So may I follow up with that then, please? And perhaps legal could clarify this. We have on our consent agenda and, excuse me, we commonly pass things under suspension of rules, which eliminates the 3 readings. When can the public have an opportunity to speak on those things if there happen to be more than 5? Excuse me.
Mayor and council members, I met with the mayor last week on this topic, and she was asking for my opinion about what was required and where were the due process rules and so forth, and I'll tell you what I told her. Idaho law outlines when people are entitled to speak on certain topics, and we always have public hearings, and those are noticed, and the people who appear at those have due process rights to be heard. And there's still an order to that. There's some decorum there. There is a topic that they would speak to, but they do have a right to be heard, and those will always be noticed as public hearings. The budget is one of them. Anybody from the community can be heard, and they sign up and they go through the process and they can speak to the budget. You see it a lot of times in land use issues. If there's going to be a zone change or an annexation or something in their neighborhood, they get to speak to that. Beyond those areas where the law tells us that there's a right to speak, it becomes discretionary. And what I shared with the mayor was this is a city council meeting that's run by the mayor. And so between the mayor and the city council, I think that you have discretion as to when you're going to allow the public input on certain things when it's not required by law. If it was required, I would tell you that. And so the one overarching rule is as you identify the speakers within this limit, that your criteria cannot be content-based. That is a free speech right. So you don't want to be picking and choosing among speakers based upon their content, but you do have the right to impose what the law refers to as time, place, and manner requirements. We're not telling you what you can or can't say, but we do have a meeting to get through. We've got an agenda to get through. The council meetings have been very late at times. And that's to be avoided if at all possible. We've all felt that. I think I've heard most of you comment that as that midnight hour rolls around, it gets to be harder to make decisions and to focus on what sometimes is very detailed information. So I think working together as a mayor and council, you all have the ability to try to find that balance between keeping the meeting moving along while still trying to provide some limited forum, for people to address what they want to. But where that balance lies is not a legal issue. It's going to be a practical issue for you guys to kind of figure out.
Madam Mayor, just a question. I would be in favor of this. I guess my question is the reason for distinguishing between agenda and non-agenda. What would be the reason for just not making it 10 maximum?
Well, in some ways, I think for fairness purposes, because if there were some people here to speak on an agenda item and there were 15 people on a non-agenda item, you want the agenda item people to have that same opportunity, right? So we've allowed for 5 people to speak on agenda items if there was someone here that wanted to speak on something that was on the agenda, versus if you had a large contingency on either or, you want to give place for both. And so that's why it's identifying 5 for both. Now, we could certainly give opportunity, and we could with the discretion of the evening if we needed to, I think.
And not to get in the weeds, but how would we determine, would there be a sign-up list, or is that yet to be determined?
I think what we did talk about was having a sign-up list. I don't know that it's there is it there this evening? Thank you. So Debbie and I had talked about it, so it was out there this evening.
So
and
the
we'll
first
continue.
10 would have the first 5 on agenda, then the first 5 on a non-agenda is what the protocol would be? Okay.
And as we can see, there was no one signed up this evening, and so on the general rule, it's a non-issue. I just thought it's always good to address a limit when you don't need to. And so that was the intent here, is just to be proactive, because I don't see that we've had more than that at any given time.
So, Mayor, may I follow up on my other question then? And perhaps Mr. Hilty. When it comes to the 3 reading rule, and we do a lot of suspension of rules, how does that work? What does that look like? Because I've had people ask me, when we're doing away with the 3 reading, and the public is supposed to be able to have an opportunity to talk at one of the 2 or 3 readings, what does that look like? Because I've never seen that done at our council meeting in even the 5.5 years I used to come.
Mayor, Councilwoman Levi, from a legal standpoint, there is not under Idaho law an opportunity for anybody to, or a legal requirement for the council or mayor to recognize somebody to speak when at any of those 3 readings. It's simply a reading requirement. And just as a reminder to the council members and to the public, the reason that rule is waived is because the 3 reading rule says that the ordinance is to be read 3 times on 3 different days, 2 readings of which may be by title only, which means that 3rd reading has to be the ordinance in its entirety. And you've seen some of the ordinance that you've passed. It could take half an hour to read through some of those ordinances. And so it's our recommendation that unless you want to read through each ordinance in its entirety at one of those 3 readings, that the rule should be waived. Now, many of those ordinances, although not all of them, do have a public hearing requirement. So using an annexation as an example, that would come forward. There would be a public hearing at the planning and zoning level. There would be another public hearing at the city council where, again, people are entitled to speak because it's a due process right. The last step in an annexation is the ordinance. Okay, so chances are, depending on what the ordinance is, there may have been a previous public hearing on it. But you should know that there are other ordinances that do not require public hearings, and that's where we get back to this discretionary issue as to whether the mayor or council want to receive comment on some of those that may not have an associated public hearing with them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other council comments? No? Okay, we'll move on. We have one external communication tonight, and this is regarding healthy relationships and safe babies. And Dr. Megan Casper is here to speak to us. And Megan, feel free to introduce the other ladies that are with you this evening. Thank you.
Mayor Kling and council members, thank you in follow-up with our last agenda item, thank you so much for your time this evening. I have with me Cindy Hodges as well. I am an OBGYN at Salzer Medical Group, and Cindy works with me there, and I'm here to talk to you about our new initiative, Healthy Relationships, Safe Babies. It appears we have a little bit of a theme for you this evening, as you've been hearing about the Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and celebrating life and treasuring the precious resource that our babies and children are. And this is another aspect of that. The background on this was, I was asked to write an article last year on preparing for a healthy pregnancy. And one of the things, I covered several topics, and one of them was relationships, looking at your relationship. Is this a healthy relationship? Is this a home environment that your baby would be safe in? Do you have good support? And the feedback I got on that was, hey, wait a second, nobody's talking about this. We talk about planning for pregnancy with diet and prenatal vitamins and testing and medical things, but we're not really talking about relationships. And we know this has a huge impact on mother's health and on babies' health when they are born. The state of Idaho in 2015, the most recent year that I could find statistics for, over 19,000 referrals for potential child abuse. Certain percentage of those are referred for investigation, and then a total of 1,600 confirmed children who were victims of unsafe home environments, and that can range anywhere from neglect to abuse to whether physical or emotional or witnessing violent acts in the home. So the cards that you have in front of you, this is, so we decided as a medical group, let's address this in a healthcare setting. We're very good at talking about birth control, contraception, we're very good talking about sexual health. Let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about it before the abuse starts. Let's talk about it before our babies are in an unsafe situation, and provide that, open that door for our patients. So just walking you through the card real quick. This is small. Women can slip it in their pocket, in their shoe, if they're concerned that a partner might find it. Signs of a healthy relationship on the inside. Red flags for relationships. And then, and this is my favorite part, on the back, questions to ask yourself before becoming pregnant in terms of your relationship. Sometimes it's easy to think about abuse in terms of other people, and questions to ask ourselves are sometimes very helpful. As we are beginning this within our healthcare environment, we're hoping that this becomes bigger than just our practice. We're hoping that this can spread and be a resource throughout our community. In Nampa, Canyon County, and even beyond. What I am looking for this evening is to see if I have the support of the Nampa City Council for promoting this Healthy Relationships, Safe Babies initiative as we move forward. Thank you. Any questions? Happy to.
Mayor Kling, if I could say yes, you do have my support 100%. The other thing is what can I do as an individual, not speaking on behalf of the council, but just as me. I will send you a card and we'll get together.
That would be marvelous. I would
Thank
love
you.
to talk to you more about it. Yeah.
You can send a check to Family Justice Center.
Yes. I already have.
Yeah, and I didn't mention that. The Family Justice Center has been fabulous to work with. They have helped us with the verbiage on this card. Tremendous resource for our community, and we've been very happy to partner with them here locally. Thank you very much for your time.
Very good.
Dr. Megan, thank you. The one thing that I saw coming out of this group and with Dr. Megan is that she has the opportunity to visit with people before they've ever called or before they're into a situation. And so thank you for planting seeds and thoughts and encouraging women with their thought process well in advance. And so thank you for your proactive visions. Thank you all. Appreciate it. So let's do staff communications, and then we will move to 6.6 on the agenda. So Tom, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to have Jeff Barnes do majority of the staff report, since he's going to talk about transportation. But in a previous staff report, we'd talked about a Nampa Wastewater Design Review Committee coming up. And there's just a little reminder that that's coming up this Thursday at 7 a.m. at the wastewater treatment plant. So we're excited to have that group helping us out. I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you.
Mayor, City Council, thanks for your time tonight. I'm going to give you a brief summary of Communities in Motion 2040 2.0. And just want to first say that it's administered by Compass. Most of you, are you familiar with Compass? But I want to just say thank you to Mayor and also Councilman Rodriguez for being on the Board of Commissioners and doing a great job. So much work around the Canyon County this summer. It was good to see, and that part of that is your leadership. Myself and Claire Bowman are on RTAC, so we meet once a month and we give technical recommendations to the board. And so part of that is preparing Communities in Motion 2.0. It's updated every 4 years. It's our regional long-range transportation plan. Right now it's open for public comment. We wanted to open that up also if you had any additional comments for me tonight or during the week. In the Treasure Valley, the population is estimated to grow from 680,000 to 1 million by 2040. That's a 53% increase, and people talk about traffic now, but it's very important to plan for traffic in the future. And the population of Nampa is at just under 100,000, supposed to increase, forecasted increase to 150,000 by 2040. So part of this is just good planning regionally. Also, we're in the midst of our transportation master plan, which is important as we grow to know what our capital improvement needs are. So the plan, just a few highlights. A number of things we look at in the plan is transportation, land use, housing, infrastructure, health, economic development, but I want to highlight three. This is an update from the plan in 2014. Three things. One, focus on the complete system, and I'll elaborate just briefly on that. Two is funding policy changes in this update. And then three, prioritize unfunded projects, and you'll see a list of both funded and unfunded projects in the plan. So first one is to focus on the complete system. And so this update really has an emphasis on freight, roads, transit, and bike and ped, really all of transportation. I want to highlight just one of those, and that's freight. So freight, we had a great year, and we have good leadership in-house. I want to say just Claire Bowman does a fantastic job for us, and he's been a good ambassador and advocate. And also Tom has been awesome on the freight side of things. This is a stream of funding that we did not know about, but we do now. And so we got this project is Karcher-Franklin Roundabout as part of a freight grant. And also across to the other side of the I-84 on Franklin and Industrial, we got a $5 million grant there. And that's just an idea of some of that freight movement. We also have millions of dollars in bike and ped and transit grants, and that's part of the program. Two, there's been policy change, and there's a movement towards maintaining the system. And just like you'd maintain your house, you paint it so that the siding doesn't deteriorate and you have to replace the whole siding. Well, same with transportation. If you apply chip seal, overlays, mill and overlays, crack seal, those relatively inexpensive treatments keep the good good, and that's our goal. So that was taken on by the regional body, and so we looked at policy change and focus on maintenance. One of the best projects we've never really got a straight up maintenance project from Compass, but this Cherry Lane rebuild from Franklin to 11th is $1.3 million, and it is just to maintain and rebuild that asphalt. So we'll also put in some bike and ped facilities, but that is an example of that type of focus. Focus on maintenance, there's $22 million per year in deferred roadway maintenance in the Treasure Valley. To give you an idea of kind of where we stand, it's estimated that the city of Nampa has approximately $7 million of that total, and I feel like we have a lot of positive momentum, but we still have a lot of ground to make up. Three, prioritizing funded and unfunded projects. In the Treasure Valley, there's $509 million worth of needs. Right now, funded-wise, there's $274 million in funding. And then that leaves a $235 million shortfall. Some interesting maps to consider. So this is a list of the funded projects in the area, and the blue shows that those are programmed in a capital improvement plan. And so if you can kind of see, that's that $274 million in funded projects annually, because they have a system in place in Ada County, basically, and it's a number of funding sources. When you compare that to the unfunded projects in the plan, there's $235 million per year in unfunded. Well, you look at a lot of that is focused around Nampa or around Canyon Canyon, which is something we're trying to change now. But those funding projects need to be funded in order to make room for this growth that's coming to the valley. And then you look at them together, and you see kind of where we need to go, and a lot of the opportunities there for funding, which is what we're working on right now as a staff. Nampa's right now a shortfall is $17.3 million per year. Today we are approximately $3.5 million per year, and the council has incrementally increased that for the last several years, which we very much appreciate. Federal and state grants do not cover needs, average about $3 million a year, although this year we had $11.5 million in grants, so every once in a while you do real good. That feels good, but can't keep that going every year. So feel like that's a little of the bad news, but generally, I feel like we are moving in the right direction. So in the next several months, we're going to be working as a staff to prepare a plan, funding that's incremental, that's fair, and I know you have difficult decisions as decision makers in that way, and we want to make that as easy as we can and have as much data behind it as we can. So with that, the plan is on the web. They did a great job of that. Really easy to navigate there, and I'll just stand for any comments or questions you might have.
Mayor Kling, if I could. So you talk about funding. What are you talking about? Are you talking about state funding, grants, Compass, or us
Yeah,
residents
that's,
in
that,
Nampa?
the blue, that, this,
All the above.
this is
probably.
all of the above. I mean, it's every bit of funding source that they have, from impact fees to tax money to grants, everything.
I see.
Would you point out the Canyon County line right there? I don't know if we
Yeah,
just,
can I do that? So it's in the vicinity of there.
it's just a really interesting line when you see Ada County blue,
Yep.
Nampa, Canyon County red.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, if I
Yes.
may, and I downloaded the projected ones and the ones that are not going to be done. And so just a question, on the short-term funded, and does Compass do these estimates, or is it a combination of folks who, on a project I'm referring to? Yeah, I'm going
Compass
to get
prepares most of
specific here in a
those.
second, but,
Compass prepares most of
okay.
those.
So just two, and I'm putting you on, maybe Jeff on the spot a little bit here, but these are both Nampa. Intersections Middleton Road and Orchard Avenue, Nampa, add traffic signal projected for 2019. The estimated cost is the same as $2 million, $1,924,000. Right below that is intersection Middleton Road and Smith Avenue, so they're both on Middleton. Widen lanes and install traffic signal, pedestrian facilities, street lighting, and turn lanes, and that one's for $510,000. So the Middleton Road and Orchard is 3 times as much. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so that, the Middleton Orchard project, the extents are much farther back. It's full lane widening with stormwater systems, sidewalk. We had $400,000 worth of utility work extensions in that project. If you compare that to Smith and Middleton has 3 legs of it that are already improved. We don't have to move the curb. All the flat
Okay.
work is done. It's a relatively simple signal at Smith.
Any eminent domain involved in the Middleton Orchard?
Yeah, exactly. So the Middleton Orchard has a lot of right-of-way issues that we've been working through, and that's expensive. The Smith Middleton doesn't have any right-of-way. We're putting the signal poles at a future location. There's one corner that we need it, but we don't need it now.
Okay. One, if I may, Mayor, one follow-up question. Seems like in just going through the list, and I realize eminent domain can make a big difference, but it seems like roundabouts are less expensive than signals. And so who's making the decision on whether we go roundabouts or whether we go on? I realize there's roundabouts in this list also, but I'm just wondering who makes that decision.
It depends on the intersection. First of all, we look for roundabouts that just efficiency and safety-wise. They're amazing in the right application. They tend to be oftentimes more expensive because you need more area, more right-of-way. They're more difficult to put in after we've developed in an area, which we're finding. And if it's a relatively inexpensive signal like Smith and Middleton, it's a different, it's cheaper. But typically, if you have apples and apples, roundabout's just as expensive.
Okay, because that's what I was looking at. Midland Road and Ustick Road, a roundabout to 2020 for $500,000.
Middleton and
Midland
Midland
and Ustick.
and Ustick.
Roundabout projected for 2020 for $500,000.
Yeah, so that just construction, so they're designing it right now. It doesn't include design, and they're probably going to do a lot of that labor with the highway districts. That's a joint project between.
So there's
Nampa
more to
Highway
be added
District,
on to
Canyon,
that.
yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Mayor Kling, if I could clarify, those roundabouts, aren't they being purchased or put in by the Ada County Highway District and not the city of Nampa?
Councilman, the Ada County highway districts, they hire, they won't put them in themselves. They won't do the construction.
see. I
Nampa
see.
Highway District recently did the construction on the Robinson
At Victory?
Right,
Robinson Victory Roundabout.
right, but they also have one for Middleton and Orchard, and also Ustick and Midland, right?
Yes, and, yeah, the Ustick and Midland one, they may be doing some of that.
Right.
So I'm not
That
sure
is
about that.
either, is that Canyon or Nampa Highway District Number 1?
That's Canyon is the
Canyon.
lead agency.
Yeah.
Nampa Highway District Number 1 is involved in it, and then we're involved in it, and Caldwell, City of Caldwell. So
I
it's
guess
right there
what-
in the junction of,
I guess what I'm saying is that the city of Napa won't fund all that cost, only a portion of the cost, correct?
correct, on that particular location,
Yeah,
correct,
okay.
yes.
All right, thank you.
Are there any, Randy?
Jeff, when you talk about as far as funded and unfunded, that's all surface, right? Nothing below the surface, utility extensions. Is there conversation at the same time you're looking at these funded projects for the utility extensions, because they quite often are underneath the asphalt that you're putting down?
Yeah, Councilman, generally, when you have like a $1.5 million project, there's some utility work that's anticipated in that. If it's beyond that, like major upgrades or upsizing of the infrastructure, we would use a different funding source. and would
Okay,
enter-
so there is consideration of the subsurface along with the surface treatment.
Generally, when we're doing planning estimates, we'll use our historical numbers from those, and that does include some utility upgrades. So I would say 10%. If it's a major, not major improvements, not upsizing or new.
Well, knowing that some of the upsizing is developer-driven, as far as for economic growth, when you're looking at these type of road repairs or expansion widths or whatever it might be, is there an eye on the potential growth that it could bring at the same time? Or is that something that you're waiting to see if there is a trend moving in a certain area for growth?
So as far as installing utilities with that
Right.
improvement, yeah, absolutely. So in our planning process every year, we look at a GIS map with where the locations of the utilities are, where future upgrades need to be, and if they overlap in that location, we definitely want to put those in with the project. So that's something we did, and that's the example of that is Orchard and Middleton. We upsized the water, sewer, and PI lines while we were in that intersection.
Thanks, Jeff.
Are there any other further questions? So Jeff will be back, or Tom, a little bit later to talk about the 2040 plan and any comments that the council would like to make into that plan. So we'll be back a little bit later in case anyone has any further questions also.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So let's move to item number 6.6. This is a new business item, and this is an action item. And this is a resolution and an authorization for the mayor to sign related documents for financing the wastewater upgrades Phase 1 Group A project with the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality for $17 million using the state revolving fund loan. And the agreement has been reviewed and approved by legal, correct? Nate, thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, good evening, Mayor, Council. So as the mayor stated, there's the resolution tonight for financing the wastewater upgrades, Phase 1, Group A project. Details, specifics, define elements of the resolution and agreements. Our bond counsel is here tonight, John McDevitt. But first, I just wanted to say, as far as the project itself, this was Group A. There's 3 projects, Group A, Group B, Group C, that's within Phase 1. Group A has been constructed and closed out, so now it's time to close out on the loan. But, the project was a great project. We removed an existing pump station, existing clarifier, even an existing trickling filter. And these are 60-plus-year-old infrastructure out at the plant. And we got this great project done and constructed in this phased approach based on the Nampa Advisory Wastewater Group, input from the community and industry that selected this phased alternative. And through that involvement with the public and the agencies, one of the key team members, the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, I don't know if any of those individuals made it tonight, but they, through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, paid for $17 million of the $18.4 million project. So Now, the team that got the work done on the ground, there's the construction contractor, Ewing. I don't think they're here tonight, but we do have our program manager, Brown and Caldwell, here tonight, and Jacobs Engineer, Jacobs, formerly CH2M Hill Engineers, the design engineer and record engineer on the project. They did an excellent job working on this project over the last 3 years. So now I'll turn it over to John. Let him give you.
Madam Mayor, council members, thank you for taking this matter up. The note resolution before you today is authorizing the mayor to, the city to issue its note, and that is for $17 million, and that note will provide permanent financing with DEQ as holder of the note. The resolution authorizes the mayor to sign the note and the city clerk to attest it, and also to sign the loan agreement with DEQ. The current schedule is to close this financing next week, next Friday, October 26. The note resolution, I'm just going to go over generally what's in it. If there are questions, please let me know. But as I said, it provides the authorization to issue the note, providing authority to sign the note to the mayor, clerk. There is the ability for the city to issue additional bonds. And I think that's important for the city, obviously, with respect to the bond election that occurred and the anticipation of issuing new bonds in the future. So the resolution provides for that. There are certain covenants within the resolution that have been reviewed with the city attorney and Public Works. Most of this the city is already doing, collecting late fees, things that, just how its billing processes are in here. And the city's also agreeing to perform certain audits and provide information to DEQ on an annual basis. They attach to the resolution is a form of the note, and again, that will be prepared in anticipation of the closing next week. And the note will have certain schedules that DEQ will attach to it, providing the payment terms. And once DEQ finalizes its processes, which I believe is happening this week, then we'll be able to get those appendices attached to the note. And with that, stand for any questions.
Mayor Kling. John, what it's for the full 17 million?
Correct.
Is that a fixed rate as far as on the bond?
Yes, it's a 2% interest rate.
2% through the state revolving fund?
Correct.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just curious, John, thank you so much. Is there any penalty for, I would realize it probably will not happen at 2% rate, but as far as paying off early?
No,
Is there a penalty?
DEQ is very flexible on that. They do not charge a prepayment penalty.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions?
Only if they provide a 2% interest rate for anybody privately, but I doubt that's probably the case.
Yeah, unlikely.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Nate, is there anything else that you would like to add to this item?
No, Mayor, just hoping for a motion to approve the resolution and authorize Mayor Kling to sign the necessary documents for financing Phase 1 Group A project.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Fellow council members, I move that we authorize the mayor to sign the resolution and the related documents for financing the wastewater upgrades Phase 1 Group A project as presented.
Second. Oh, Randy.
Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And Skog?
Yes.
Okay, let's move to unfinished business then, the next item on our agenda, and we'll start with item number 4.1. And this is the discussion of issues related to the towing, abandoned, and impounded vehicles contract for the city of Nampa. This is a continuation from the discussion that we had at the last council meeting. So I am just trying to think who we have here from the police. I'm not seeing, am I missing someone? Chief Huff, I didn't see you. Excuse me. So go ahead and come forward if you don't mind. I guess the question for council, did you receive the information and have your questions answered? And do you have any further questions for Chief Huff? Thank you.
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
Chief Huff, impound yards, how many are within the city limits of Nampa, do you know?
Did you not get that information from Lieutenant Ramirez? I'm not sure. I don't have that information with me tonight. It would be just a handful that are in the city limits.
4 to 5 is
I would
what-
say, I was gonna say 3 to 4 probably in the city limits.
So as far as consideration of a business that has a tow yard within the city limits versus the current one that's outside the city limits, what would give preference to someone outside the city limits versus a business that's inside?
Well, it wouldn't have really anything to do with the tow yards. It would have to do with the response time, that's why we like to keep them on a rotation for a year to 2 years to see what kind of trucks they have, if they have flatbeds, if they have regular tow trucks. Response time is less than usually 45 minutes is what we would require. And then as far as their tow yards, though, it has to have certain signage, certain insurance requirements, certain heights of the fence, security and stuff like that, camera systems. Those are requirements that we look at. And obviously, within Canyon County, a certain driving distance. So cars that are towed within the city limits, they don't have to go to the far side of Caldwell or something to retrieve their vehicle.
Right, and that's been the concern that I've heard, is that the current yard is hard to find outside the city limits, and obviously a city business versus a non-city business, one paying taxes in the city, one not. What would give one preference over the other? And if it's performance, then I guess that's something that's more your decision or discretionary on your part.
Yeah, it would be discretion on our part. So the current tow company that we have, like I said, they respond in a timely manner. They have trucks. When we go in and do inspections, they haven't failed any of the inspections. They maintain, if there's a problem with where the tow yard is located, I can definitely speak with that and speak with them and see if they could, add some better signage to help people get there. I haven't heard that concern from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's, a concern that citizens are bringing up, to definitely address that with them. And I haven't been to their tow yard to look at it, to find how easy it is. So I'm not really educated to speak on that.
And I don't want to take all your time, so you've answered a few of my questions. Thanks.
Are there any further questions from council on this particular issue? I think if I understood it correctly, Chief Huff, before you go too far, I think the gentleman that came and spoke at the meeting before this last meeting, actually the company in question was looking to have the opportunity to bid, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
But in order to participate, according to our current guidelines, I don't know if that's an ordinance.
No.
It's not, but according to
Internal policy.
internal policy is that they're on the rotation list.
Correct.
That they're
Yes.
currently, and this company is not currently on that rotation list.
That's my understanding, correct.
Okay, so I guess my recommendation would be that they get on the list, the rotation list, so that they could be used in rotation, and then they would actually qualify if we did go out to bid, because that is a requirement that they have been tested and that they're a part of our list before we would actually give the opportunity to give the contract.
Mayor Kling, so is it an RFQ or an RFP process?
RFQ.
Okay, so I understood that October was the month that the RFQ process was going to be put out again. Is that correct?
Actually, it wasn't going to be put out. If we're having trouble with a particular tow company, then that's the opportunity for us to say, on October it's coming up. Right now, we had no plans to open it back up.
Okay, so it would be my desire to see that RFQ process again happen in October or November to allow other companies, not just this specific one, but others, to have an opportunity to present themselves to the police department then.
Okay, that's fine. Would you agree, though, with the understanding that the company that we're speaking about that was interested, they would be on the rotation for a period of a year?
Well, that's what I'm saying. How do they get on the rotation then?
They,
Is
they
it-
can just call and we'll go to make sure
Oh.
that they have the proper insurance and the trucks that will require, the flatbeds versus whatever. They're on there for a period of a year, and then we monitor their response time to make sure they don't, continue to, we're busy and we can't respond right now, and then they get moved to the bottom of the list. And we
So
just-
the RFQ process is for the tow yard, or the impound yard, not for just the towing service.
Right, yeah, anybody can get on the towing service, and then, like I said, we
Okay.
like to vet them for a period of 12 months, and then when we would open it up, maybe October of next year,
Sure.
to give others a chance.
So it's opportunity then, to let them know that they can get a hold of you, or who would they get a hold of?
Sure, they can get a hold of myself or Lieutenant Joe Ramirez, either one of us.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Councilman Brunner?
Just a quick question. Thanks, Chief. So that currently, there's no internal policy as far as an RFQ after a certain number of years or anything of that sort?
I believe it's every 2 years that we look at it, and this would be the.
Then you decide whether you're going to actually put it out or not. So it's
Correct.
not an automatic, is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is the second year, I believe, that they've been on our rotation.
Okay.
October is the second year.
Right, thanks.
Mayor Kling,
Yes.
excuse me. Chief, so I'm trying to do some figuring here, and you tell me if this is right or wrong. And I'm not saying that this is high price, but let's figure it out. If you get involved in an accident, and a tow truck you call is $200 per hour, and then $4 per mile, and then you enter a storage fee of $40 per day, and then you have a gate fee of $80 and a cleanup of $20. Oh, first thing is, what are they cleaning up for $20? And the other thing is, you're looking at $400 in one time. Do you have access, or do you think it's a good idea to minimize or maximize the cost for our community?
I do. That's a little broader answer.
I know.
The particular, what we're talking about with our tow ordinance or with our tow policy in the Nampa Police Department, they don't charge, it's for the abandoned vehicles. It's not for accidents and stuff like that.
Oh, I see, I see.
So it's a zero cost.
Oh,
And
okay,
if it's
okay.
a police vehicle that needs to be towed, it's a flat fee of $100 for their tow. For the accidents, though, we do get, I believe there's 13 tow companies on our rotation list, and we do monitor their fee schedule, I guess. That's something that we can't oversee, and say you're charging too much or you're not. I mean, that comes down to Better Business Bureau, I would assume, and we have no authority over directing that. All I can answer for is what's in our policy and our contract, which it's a zero fee, and there is nothing. I would assume the cleanup answer is if the oil was spilt and, the glass was breaking and stuff like that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So does it meet with the will of the council to encourage anyone that would like to get on that rotation list to reach out to our police department, to Joe Ramirez or to Chief Huff, to go ahead and get on it, and then we'll move forward from there? Are we good? Okay.
Yeah, just looking for a path. That's really what they were looking for.
And just for my clarification, did you want me to open it up in November again, or to wait for a year?
I think it would be good. I mean, if, just from a standpoint of accountability, the current yard, if they would have the ability to present back to you their qualifications to make sure that they're still up to the level that you want them to be at, I think that's just incumbent upon doing your due diligence as far as on that company.
Okay, so just to report back, I mean, because like I said, our officers are out there probably several times a week to the yard, as far as the standards that we require.
Okay? Mayor Kling, either report back or the results of an RFQ process, either one.
So one thought, though, is that if we do not go out for an RFQ in November, but let it set a year, we could choose to go out in a year. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Right, if we don't go out this year, which would allow the company, someone else to get into it next year. If we go out for an RFQ this year, we won't be going out for 2 years. So then it would be a more lengthy pause for someone to be able to get in. So one thought might be that we don't go for an RFQ, but make sure that you're doing exactly as Councilman Haverfield has suggested. Let people know that this is a time, if anyone would like to participate in the rotation, They get to do that. They can participate in the rotation, and then we postpone the RFQ for 1 year, which gives us the opportunity to go out in 1 year after we've notified anyone that would like to participate in the rotation this year.
Okay.
Does that,
Madam Mayor, clarification then. So the window of time for the rotation is, do we have a internal policy for that also?
Every 2 years, but we can,
I mean, is there a month or whatever? Is there a?
usually it's October.
October is also for the
Correct.
request for, to be in the rotation?
Yes.
Plus
If
the
we're seeing problems.
plus the RFQ, everything is in October then?
Usually, yes.
Thanks.
Mayor Kling, one last item then, Chief Huff, is if you could then have a report back to the council, since we did hear a complaint about that yard, just to make sure that, we're doing some due diligence on backup.
Absolutely.
And they're aware that you're checking on them. I think that's what it's, basically what we're asking for right now. And then that, again, my understanding is any company then could reach out to you and say, we would like to be able to be put on your rotation, and then provide you their qualifications to make sure that, that they do meet your level. A question I had for you, though, is one of the companies was listed as pending approval. Is that a company that supplied you with information that have not yet been given authorization?
I don't know on that. That would fall to Lieutenant Ramirez. So more than likely, I don't know if they're coming off a suspension, or I don't know to answer
Okay.
that. But usually, yes, they'll vet the company and maybe waiting for some insurance paperwork or something like that before we'll accept them on.
Okay, so they're not waiting a whole year or whatever. They're just waiting, you're just waiting for them to provide the proper paperwork.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
so at this time, what we're going to do is leave this as an open, unfinished business item pending, you can come back and give us an update.
Okay.
And we'll just leave it as unfinished business and bring it back.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
So it is 7 o'clock.
Put it in a month?
Probably a month or plus. So at this time, it is 7 PM, and it's time for our public hearings, and I believe we have 3 public hearings on this evening. So let's get to those, and that's going to be action item, thank you. 8.1. This is Richard Scott of Gunnar Properties LLC on behalf of Tom Scott Honda, has requested a variance to the City of Nampa zoning ordinance, and this is Nampa Sign Code 102320B, allowing a maximum monument sign height of 25 feet in a BC zoning district. The applicant has requested a variance to allow a 30-foot monument sign to replace the existing 30-foot monument sign located at 603 11th Avenue North within the BC zoning district. The applicant states that the existing 30-foot monument sign has been in place for a substantial period of time, and the Honda corporate required the redesign and replacement of the existing signage. And I think we have our applicant here. Hello, thank you.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, I'm Connie Brunia, Nampa attorney, and I'm representing Mr. Scott. What you just read pretty much it describes very well our initial application for a change in the sign, and that precipitated the need for requesting a variance. I believe the sign code now is 25 feet. The existing sign is at 30 feet and has been for, I believe, 2003. Since 2003. It's a corporate requirement. There's no change in business ownership. There's essentially very little change in the signage, the type of sign that's going to be there. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
Connie, is the sign a static sign, or does it have movement?
It's static and illuminated.
Okay, thank you.
Any other further questions? for
Excuse me, what is a static sign?
Static sign means it's just, it's a signage with light behind it. It's not an electronic reader board.
Oh, I see, okay.
No moving parts.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions for Connie? Connie, you will have the opportunity to step back at the end of public hearing and answer any further questions. So thank you. So staff, Robert Hobbs, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Included in your report this evening, you have a series of findings that are intrinsic to the question of a variance. And amongst those statements that staff has provided to you, we found that there is certainly argument that the sign was in place in a time before the sign code in the BC zone said that you were to go down to 25 feet here and after. Presuming that to be the case, and with no records to the contrary, when the sign was allowed at 40 feet perhaps originally, and because of the view corridor or shed that the sign at 30 feet would offer to passersby as a business perk, if you will, for Honda, versus being set 5 feet lower than existing, we recommended this for your consideration. You have in your packet a couple of pictures that help illustrate the one question of visibility, which might be the closest that staff could find in the way of argumentation to support the idea of some kind of topographical hardship existing with the site. That view is, of course, northbound traffic on 11th Avenue North. And you see the current 30-foot tall sign cresting the tree canopies. And then obviously the opposing southbound view. We have received no expressions of opposition either from departments or agencies or the citizenry respecting this matter, and have provided in your staff report at the end of the same a little narrative on possible counterarguments to the plausibility of having a variance issued for this proposal. Questions?
Mayor Kling. Robert, is that a 25-foot sign then for what we're seeing here?
The understanding we have is it's a 30-foot sign
That's 30 now?
that they're replacing with another 30-foot sign.
Okay. Are those Class 1 trees as far as along the frontage?
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, yes, they should be.
Yeah, because they pretty much block the sign.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
So this is a public hearing, and we have no one signed up to testify on behalf of or against. Is there anyone that intended to testify that did not have the opportunity to sign up? Okay. Would you like to, do you mind coming forward? Okay, if you could come. Okay, so were you wanting to speak on behalf of this issue? No, it's a separate issue. It's a separate issue. Okay, so we've already moved away from that in our agenda, and I apologize for that. Okay, and I'm sorry, we moved it up to 6, and so we've missed that opportunity. Let us finish this particular public hearing, and then we'll get back to you. How's that? Since we're in a different section of the meeting right now. Thank you. So is there anyone else that had intended to speak on behalf of this issue? Okay, seeing none, this would be an opportunity if the applicant has anything else that she would like to share, Connie, or do we have any further questions?
Mayor and council, the pictures are great. They really show how much the trees block the sign even at 30 feet. At 25 feet, it would pretty much disappear into the landscape. So we very much appreciate your consideration of allowing that 30-foot sign to continue at that height. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Mayor Kling, one more question then. Who owns those trees? Is that the city of Napa or is that Tom Scott?
They're in the
Or
easement.
the easement, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I would also stand for a motion.
Mayor Kling, I'll make the motion to approve the request as written and proposed with recommended conditions of approval as stated by staff.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Just want to compliment Honda for the sign, and also, most of all, I see an American flag back there. So as long as that sign's not higher than the American flag, you have my vote. Appreciate it.
I'd like that flag to get a
Thanks.
little higher.
If there's no further discussion, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ogable?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Now that the vote is done, thank you for serving our community for this many years. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Yes, we're going to pause, and since you missed the opportunity, give you those 3 minutes And so we would just ask you to state your name and your address and what the issue is. If you can come forward, that's helpful. If not, stand where you are.
Thank you so much.
You are
My
welcome.
name is Joan Frazier, and I live at 2016 5th Street South in beautiful Nampa, Idaho. And what I came about is in the newspaper, they had about Nampa Council continues discussion on Lakeview Park. My point of reference is Seattle, Washington. I lived there most of my life until 6 years ago when I came here. And there's a park outside of our apartment building, and they decided to provide food for people in need, which they did. And what it did is it attracted a lot of transient people, and of course they need food too. But then they begin sleeping in the park during the day because they're up at night to protect what possessions they have. And then, excuse me, I'm a little out of breath. And then later on, what they did is they would come in at night after 10 o'clock when the keg lights were shut down and put tents out there. And so anyway, and then there was a little strip mall, so they would be there. And an apartment house, there was 2 apartment houses, one on each side, and the other one there was a little old man. And he would go over by the strip mall, and, you know, that's his area where he lives. Gets to talking to these people, and happened to mention that he had a coin collection. And so they got him to let him into their apartment to see the coin collection. And they stabbed him and killed him for the coin collection. So, and then in addition, this one night, normally I wasn't out late, but I was out till 11 o'clock at night. And I came home on the road there by the park. And there were people lined up probably for 100 feet in a single line across the road to a car. And this was the drug dealing. And the car would park there, and then they would come up one at a time and get their drugs. Now, this was a nice drug dealer because he motioned them back so I could drive through. But, you know, these are the kind of problems you can have when you locate a food bank where there's a place where they can sleep, like in the park, and that kind of thing. And now, people don't let their kids come to the park. And, but when they do come, is when they're having like a Little League tournament, because they do have 2 baseball fields there. And there was talk in the paper about, you know, that there's green grass there and it's getting mowed, and that's very nice. But one of the things I would mention too, in Nashville, Tennessee, they put in a regulation croquet court. And that's a cement with a hard packed sand. And they put like an 8-foot fence around it. It's locked at 10 o'clock at night. And there's a keg light, and you can turn the light on yourself. And I thought something like that in the park would be wonderful, because you're not going to break a sweat playing, you know, because of our hot summers. There's that. And then like a bocce field. A lot of men like to play bocce. It's like bowling. And those kinds of things. Let's see, got that. The other thing, I live over by Eastside Park, and they have a basketball court. There's guys and kids over there all summer long. Oh, time is up. Okay.
Sorry, that 3 minutes goes fast when you're
does.
talking, but
But I think I covered most everything I wanted to cover, but,
thank you. I think what we hear you saying is you have concerns over a food bank being situated in a park. Is that correct?
yes. And right there on Garrity, there's a white building, and it used to have like a gun shop in there.
Yes.
And it's been empty this whole 6 years I've lived here. And it's big. You could even have a social worker or something in there and plenty of parking. Might want to check that one out.
Thank you
And
so much.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking up. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're still on our public hearings, and our next item is 8.2 on the agenda. And this is Blake Wolf has requested a variance to the City of Nampa zoning ordinance section 10.8.6, requiring a minimum property width of 50 feet in the RS6 zoning district. He's requested a variance to allow a substandard lot widths of 41.01 feet for lots 2 and 3, and 41.01 feet for lot 6, 46.15 feet for Lot 7 in the previously platted North Horton subdivision, addressed as 1503, 1507, 1523, and 1527 South Horton Street, located on the south side of West Iowa Avenue and the west side of South Horton Street. He states they plan to construct single-family detached homes in place of the previously proposed townhomes. Is our applicant here this evening? Thank you for stating your name and address.
My name is Blake Wolf. I live at 843 West Horizon Way here in Nampa. I'm going to replace this with the plat. Okay, a little history on this. I bought this about a year and a half ago, rezoned it to an RS6, which is comparable to the surrounding properties. I then went through the short plat process for the 7 lots. During that process, I also obtained a CUP, a conditional use permit, for 4 of the lots to make them attached townhome lots. That upset a lot of the neighbors, thinking it was a multifamily project. Didn't quite understand, but they came out and spoke heavily against the townhome lots. I'm now coming back to you asking to go to a detached product. My reasoning behind that is it's more compatible to what the surrounding parcels and properties are. The 41 feet for 3 out of the 4 lots is close to the minimum of 50 feet. And then the lot 7 is 46 feet, so it's very even closer to the minimum 50 feet. This original parcel had some hardship, as a lot of these small infill parcels do. We found out that we could not have access off of Iowa, so all of our lots had to come in off of Horton. And then we also had a open irrigation lateral, which came with a 40-foot wide easement that encumbered a lot of the property. So we tried to do what was best and what would look the best for this particular infill project. We had one neighbor email me at 1512. His name was Steve, and he was in favor of this split, not split, but variance. I've got a couple products here that would fit in what would be a 31-foot building wide envelope. Just an idea. I mean, here's a couple more ideas. And these would fit in, they'd be very compatible with the neighbors on both sides of the streets. There's no other townhome lots on Horton. And then I failed to say that the plat is recorded. I can go in and pick up building permits today. As of early part of August, we had recorded the plat. So it is done. There's a landscape lot 1 along Iowa looks real good and has a vinyl fencing, and it's ready to go. So.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wolf?
Mayor Kling. Blake, Lot 5 is that flag lot that goes back into there. Are you planning on a little larger home back there?
Yes, most definitely. Lot 5
Yeah.
and Lot 8. The footages are great. They're, I believe, around 16,000 square feet. So we can certainly put a lot bigger, with the shop even. I mean, they're really good sized lots back there.
And then Lot 8, the one at the bottom down there I'll try to hit Victor in the forehead with this. That's your irrigation easement? Is that what you said?
Here's the irrigation easement. It goes, just follow the laser, it goes from here and then straight down and crosses over Iowa into Oakmont Sub. It originally just went straight along Horton and then made a west to a box and then made a north again. If we kept it along here, then our driveways would have been 20 feet longer, which would have made that whole frontage look funny compared to what is already there. So we decided to reroute it along with the easement to the backs of the Horton frontage parcels.
Mayor Kling, one last question then. You're looking at a 20-foot separate or setback along Horton as far as for the fronts of these homes?
Yes.
Okay, and a 5-foot side yard setback on each of them?
Yes. One other thing I'd like to add is we're really talking about one lot maybe looking a little bit narrower than the other three. Lot 2, the north boundary is the common lot, and then lot 6 is got a boundary with a driveway access, and then lot 7 has the irrigation easement. So aesthetically, if you had those 5 detached houses as you drive down Horton, nothing would stick out and say, oh, these were, really narrow lots that somehow got approved. I think aesthetically, you just wouldn't be able to tell it. 41 feet is not a big enough difference aesthetically.
Mayor, just quick question. Blake, and I probably should be able to see it, I'm just not. So on the northwest lot, closest to Iowa, you say you can't enter off Iowa, so where's the entry for that lot?
It is also, it's right here. It's a long driveway.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's a long driveway between those two lots there,
Correct.
okay. And then you can get to the one also on the southeast
Correct.
west corner also.
Yes,
Okay.
I would call that a flag lot. Yes, is maybe a slang term.
Are there any further questions at this time? Since it is a public hearing, you'll have the opportunity to come back and answer any further questions. Thank you. Robert, staff report.
Mayor and Council, as with the preceding variance, of course, you have your criteria that you would use to evaluate this proposal embedded in your report, often called conclusions of law. They're in bold font on the second page thereof. Staff, having reviewed this particular project and application type, believes that in fact there is sufficient evidence in our view to warrant consideration for approval under the auspice of at least a unique site circumstance, possibly with a topographical hardship embedded in the idea of the irrigation easement being a factor in the development of this site. Page 10 of your report provides an additional illustration that is in keeping with the applicant's attestations regarding how this, if approved, would look from a street view. If you look at the property across the street where I'm pointing in the northeast corner, you'll see that as you draw the property lines across, it basically takes in this property as well as the common area ground here. Same with this one, taking in, for the most part, this lot, and then you see, of course, another lot here with common driveway, which could go with either of these two properties, being more or less a lateral, in a lateral agreement with the property across the street. Same down here when you include the irrigation easement. The subdivision ordinance of the city of Nampa plays off of the zoning ordinance, and in the zoning ordinance, building lots, as you've noted already, have to be in RS6 zone, at least 50 feet wide. In a case of a townhouse arrangement like this, the 50 feet is taken across the full frontage of both townhouse lots versus just one lot. And so you've got, in lieu of having only to have 50 feet for these two properties, or these two down here where I'm pointing, you've now got at least 80 to 90 feet total frontage as far as the code standards are concerned. So with those expressions of thought, again, staff believes that this has warrant for consideration for approval. Any questions?
Mayor Kling. Robert, where the two X's are at the top and the two X's at the bottom, Is there anything stopping the developer from even looking at a zero lot line home on those lots?
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, he was already approved for zero lot line homes on those lots.
Okay,
So that's an active approval right now. Could be built today.
thank you.
So I have a question about the value of the homes that are being built compared to the value of the existing homes across the street. Can you give me some idea of the value of these homes?
Mayor, and I would have to
If it's
defer to the
compatible.
applicant. I'd have to defer to the applicant on that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Robert? Okay, so I think I'd like to ask the applicant that question.
Mayor, the gentleman that spoke, that emailed me and then he called me in favor of this, his name was Steve. I cannot pronounce his last name. He lives at 1512 South Horton. He was telling me he was going to put his house on the market because he could get roughly around $200,000 for it. I don't know the square footages of, because that drives that price mainly, besides the quality. But just looking at it from the outside, I would say that it's in the 12 to 1,500 square foot range, and that price is, would be accurate for somewhere around the 1,500 square foot range. That's kind of the sweet spot right now, is the 200 to 250 range. So you would be in the 1,200 to the 1,500 square foot for a new product, and that's what I intended to build. I don't know if I'm answering your question or not. It's hard to say. There's a few houses there that are definitely worth well below 200, but this particular gentleman, that's what he told me.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you very much. So this is a public hearing, and we actually have no one signed up to testify on either side on this particular issue. That said, we've heard both from the applicant and from staff. Is there anyone here that had intended to sign up to speak at this public hearing on this issue? Okay, seeing none. Are there any further questions of the applicant or staff at this time? Okay, I'll stand for a motion.
I'll make a motion,
To
close
close?
the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Discussion.
Mayor, council, I make a motion to grant the requested variance with the recommended conditions of approval.
Second.
Further discussion? I have to state one concern I have. It's so important that I appreciate infill. Thank you, because that is good to come in and bring infill. It's also important that we take into consideration the value of what we're building in relationship to the value of the homes that are there. And with that narrow lot, there could be a perception. But thank you. It sounds like you've listened to the residents regarding the townhouse side. So that's appreciated. So I just appreciate you being considerate to the homeowners right around you as you design and develop whatever you place on those lots. So, okay, is there any further discussion, comment? Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, item 8.3 on the agenda is an action item, and this is Curtis Johnson has requested a variance to the City of Nampa zoning ordinance, section 10-10-6-D, requiring a 20-foot setback to allow a 12-foot front yard setback for a proposed garage. Also, a variance for section 10-10-9, requiring a 10-foot side yard setback to allow a 0 side yard setback on the Second Street side for the existing dwelling on the corner lot for a property located at 128 12th Avenue North, Nampa, the north 74-foot of Lot 12, Block 82, Griffith and Kings Addition, in the southeast quarter section 22T3N R2W BM within the RD zoning district. And thank you. You must be our applicant. Thank you for sharing your name.
Mario Puente, representing Curtis D. Johnson of 128 12th Avenue North. So the variance that we're requesting is in order.
Could you say your name one more time?
Mario Puente.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the variance we're requesting is the current house was built in 1951. Obviously, the variance has changed since then. it requires a 20-foot setback. The house currently sits 5 feet into the setback already, having 15 feet. And on the other side of the house, on the Second Street side, the house literally sits on the setback line, which puts it at 0. So what we'd like to do is on the opposite side, not the Second Street side, on basically where you're seeing right here, there is space to add a garage, which would put us at a 5-foot setback to that side of the house between that property and the neighbor's property, which 5-foot setback is all that's required. However, coming forward off of 12th Street, we'd like to go 2 feet into the setback, which the house is currently already built 5 feet into that current setback, because the current zoning was rezoned in 1983, I believe. So unfortunately, otherwise they would have to build a 15-foot deep garage if they couldn't, which you can't fit a car or anything in that. So the way it's currently stated as a 0 setback for the side yard, that's actually not the case. It's currently, the house sits at 0 on the property after the rezoning occurred in 1983. The opposite side to the property adjacent to it would be at a 5-foot setback, which is what we would have. And in the front, we would just proceed into the current 2 more feet, which would make it 12 feet. So.
Thank you for explaining that. Are there any questions?
Mayor Kling, Mario, the whole purpose of this is to build a garage?
Yes, there's no garage or anything for the structures right now. They're just basically homes only.
Okay, so the garage, so if I understand you correctly, the garage would be 5 feet off the property line?
It would be 5 feet off the adjacent.
Okay, so, and the front of the garage, you're looking to align it with the front of that covering on the, I guess that's the front door there?
We would like to go 2 feet past that. Otherwise, we would end up, if we can go 2 feet past that lining, we could actually get an 18-foot deep, a 20-foot deep garage, which would be just deep enough to actually have a vehicle in it.
So what I'm seeing in this one attachment number 6, it appears that the front of the house is 12 feet off the property line now.
The current front of the house is 12 feet off the property line, so we'd like to at least go to the front. Yes, we want to take it right to the front of where.
So they would be the same then?
They would be the same.
Is there any reason why you can't extend the length of the garage back towards away from the street?
Yes, there's a cellar, it goes down below, and that's where the access is, right at that point, if we go further back.
Okay, so,
In the,
pardon me? Okay. So I'm clear, you're not trying to bring the garage any further forward than the front of the current house?
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions of the applicant? Thank you. You'll have the opportunity to come back.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Staff report, Robert.
Mayor Norm, in his absence this evening, has asked that I review this item with you. He's provided the visual exhibits that you have already referred to. I'll put it on the screen for those that are in attendance this evening to see. The zoning, has indicated already, requires the 5-foot setback on the side yard, and that has already been expressed as a non-matter in that the new garage is intended to comply with that setback. And you've heard an expression of why the garage can't be extended back past its current proposed footprint. Part of that also apparently has to do with an upper or main level floor window, as Norm indicated in his report, that would be, covered up by that garage if it were to be extended farther to the end of the property. The applicant didn't ask for it, but in asking or conversing with Norm about it, we thought it was a good idea to include the correction to the, street side yard setback that's right now basically at 0, so that could be made a part of this package and help relieve any questions of clouded title for the applicant going forward. Norm pointed out that the adjoining properties, both illustrated in the exhibit and another exhibit you have in your report, have similar setbacks. And in fact, at the end of the block, I noticed that there's a structure that actually goes clear out to the front yard. So they have no setback when you move. Look at this pointer isn't working, but when you move, you have a copy of the floor plan as well. Agency correspondence and citizen correspondence has been provided to you, and I saw no expressions of opposition in either. Questions?
Mayor Kling? Robert, could you put attachment number 5 up, or page 9, or whatever? It's the one with the floor plan and the proposed garage. So if you can zoom in on that, it appears that this section is 5 feet that they're asking for, but the columns are maybe 4 feet out. So on it doesn't match up with what we saw on the aerial photograph. And the reason for that was there was a statement that this could be at least 20 feet deep. Well, this dimension is 25 feet. So if we were to clip that back, so the front of the garage lined up with the columns, then we're not creating anything further beyond the front of the current house. And that was what I was trying to get at. Am I correct in my reasoning?
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, it sounds correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions of Robert? Okay, so this is a public hearing, and we have no one signed up to testify on either side on this particular hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that had intended to sign up? Yes. So thank you for coming forward and stating your name and your address. Thank you.
Very much. My name is Sandra Casanova, and I'm actually the property owner next to the home where the garage is going to be built. In the notification that we received, it stated on there if there was any impact that would affect, whether it be viewing or whatever it might be. To me, the garage is too close to the home itself, or even my property, which it would completely block all access to the current view that we have. This is the home that we've been in for, I want to say, almost 22 years. So our biggest concern is the way or the structure of the garage itself, where it's going to lay, how far it's going to be in the front, and the extension onto the side property. Now, the variance, according to the way that I read it, was a 0 tolerance, which the way that I've seen where the marks are, they are exactly on my property line. So that means that there is no additional space. Certainly, I understand that there is the seller, that they have access, and unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to build all the way to the back of their property, but the properties are too small. May I show you a picture? These lots are very tiny, and it just kind of gives you an idea as to what we have and the possibilities or not. So this is a picture of the green area on this side is our area or our home where it sits, and that is the area where they intend to go ahead and build, which is a very small location. So again, there is not a whole lot of room for, seems like the building captured too much of that. So with that, I just, to me, it's an inconvenience. Based on the information that I read off here, it's stated on here, the variances are granted only upon showing of undue hardship because of special characteristics of which deprive its privileges of the commonly enjoyed by properties of the same zone and vicinity and so forth. To me, it would completely block my home view. I've got my kitchen, my dining area, and so forth, that it would be completely blocked. There would be no space for me to go ahead and continue to enjoy what I've had over the past 22 years. I ask that it be reconsidered. I believe it would be fair enough, Madam and Councilman, ladies. So all I ask is that it be reconsidered. Certainly, I understand the necessity. We all sit in the same position. However, our lots are very tiny, and I don't know that that would be something to go ahead and reconsider. So that is all I ask.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your opinion. Are there any questions?
Mayor, I don't think Sandra said her address.
Yes, I am the lot next to it at 124 12th Avenue North.
So, Madam Mayor, if I may, so question, so what you're, so for reconsideration, what you're implying is that there'd be no garage built whatsoever? Is that what am I interpreting that correctly?
I would prefer that it would not, but
Are they a carport, or are you,
I can consider carport.
okay?
That would be a little bit more reasonable. I understand the necessities that the Johnson family has. They recently, this is a secondary home that they have, and they do have certain items in storage, and I understand that. There's a good relationship, however, we do want to go ahead and make sure that what we have visible is still there. So that's all I ask.
All right.
I
Thank
might
you.
comment, just for clarity, though, my understanding is that they're within the 5-foot setback, which is legal. Where they're asking for the variance is the front. So if they built something short within the 5-foot setback, they would be allowed to do that without the variance,
I see.
because they would be within that 5-foot setback. Am I correct, Robert, that are they asking for a variance on the 5-foot setback on that side? They are not. So they actually, according to city code, they're within code on the 5-foot setback. Where the variance is how far forward it goes.
Okay, and that's perfectly fine. So we just wanted to go ahead and come here, kind of gather an understanding, because when you're reading the letter and whatnot, it's a little bit disturbing how it is. And when you're looking at the 0 variance and so forth, and then you're looking at where the flags are, you're kind of going, okay, how far is this gonna go? And because I don't want to go ahead and break that relationship there is, I'd rather go ahead and come here, have the conversation as adults that we are, and just have a better understanding, if that makes sense. Now, certainly, we would have rather go ahead and seen the plans and so forth. They were visual. My husband wanted to go ahead and see that, but those were the concerns that we had. So as long as everything's done within code and within the limit requirements, I don't have any opposition. My preference is to still have that visual enjoyment that we've had for the many years that we've had, but obviously, it's a decision and it's something that only you can go ahead and rule.
Perfect. Thank you.
So,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Is there anyone else that had,
Madam Mayor,
excuse me?
Sandra, you need to leave those pictures for us since you made them. I hope that's okay. We can get you copies if you need them.
Oh, no,
Okay.
you're more than welcome to keep them, so.
You can
all right.
autograph them and
Thank you, Mark.
What was that? Autograph them? I can do that for you. Hey, if you love my last name, I can autograph anything you want. No, just kidding. Any other questions or concerns?
No, thank you so much.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. So is there anyone else that had intended to testify this evening that did not get signed up? Okay, seeing none. This is an opportunity for the applicant to come back and make comment after hearing both the public testimony and staff testimony. Do you have any further comments?
Thank you. So just to be clear, this is not a second residence. This is the only residence for, the other home is no longer owned by Curtis Johnson. So this is their primary residence and only one they have. So that being said, obviously, the structure of the garage, either way. So when I said 20 feet, I meant that without the 5 feet, we would be at 20 feet. I apologize for that. That was my mistake there. So
Oh,
we're
no
requesting
problem.
that to get it to 25 feet with the design that we've submitted on. However, obviously, the building of a structure, irregardless, is still going to block what she is stating, her view. Currently, as you can see, the view is of a truck, a trailer, and things like that we would love to be able to enclose and have a nicer structure on the side of the house. So obviously, we'd ask for serious consideration to be able to do that and be able to park, things in the garage as well. So, any other questions?
Mayor Kling. Mario, is there any reason why the garage can't slide back 1 foot?
It's already currently completely, if we,
It appears that it won't be the window that's the problem. Is it is the cellar?
Right here, where this is right here, right above this window is actually the cellar, the access to the cellar that comes out.
So
Okay.
we would have to completely build over that, which would defeat the purpose of the garage. And that protrudes out from the building, 8.5 feet, and is 4 foot wide with stairs that go down below
Okay.
to access their hot water heater and
And garage depths are commonly 24 feet, not 25. So if we were to clip off 1 foot off the front to keep it in alignment with the columns at the front door, it wouldn't diminish the ability to have a 16 to 18 foot long car inside.
no, it wouldn't.
Okay, thank you.
That would be appreciated consideration. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay, so I would stand for a motion to close public testimony.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, council discussion.
Mayor King, I'm ready to make a motion if you are ready for me to.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the request with the change in the depth of the, that the front of the garage be in alignment with the front columns of the house so that it's no closer to the street than the front of the house is now with those columns. So on that floor plan that's shown, that 5-foot dimension would be 4 feet. The depth of the garage would be 24 then. And I would make the motion to approve with that change and with the other conditions of approval by staff.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Yes.
Okay, and I'll include in my motion that the side yard setback adjacent to the property, I'm not sure, to the right on the screen, is that the one you're talking about?
On
The street.
12?
The street side,
Second.
which is currently 0 feet, so I mean, we're not, this motion then would approve the location of the current house as it is today. Is that satisfactory? Okay. Is that okay with your second?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. I won't try to repeat it all, but I think you have it. And I think that, well, I won't try to clarify, but I understand it. So any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
And Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, that concludes our public hearings for this evening. And at this time, we're going to move to unfinished business. And we will start with item 4.2. This is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance for vacation of the 5-foot wide public utility, drainage and irrigation easements on either side of the interior lot lines between lots 43B and 44A, and lots 44B and 45A, and lots 45B and 46A, Block 1 for Greenbrier Estate subdivision, excluding the front 10 feet and rear 12-foot easements. The lots are addressed as 3708 and 3712, 3716, 3720, 3724, and 3728 at Teakwood Drive, Nampa, within the RP zoning district. The applicants state that they're requesting the vacation of easements in order to construct 2-unit townhouses straddling each pair of the lots for Pat McMonigal, representing Prestige Homes. So would you like to read that?
Yes. An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, vacating portions of the 5-foot public utility drainage and irrigation easements located on either side of the interior lot lines between the properties commonly known as 3708 and 3712 Teakwood Drive, between the properties commonly known as 3716 and 3720 Teakwood Drive, and between the properties commonly known as 3724 and 3728 Teakwood Drive, Nampa, Idaho, directing the city engineer to alter the use and area map accordingly, providing for an effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Mayor Kling, was there a request to pass this under suspension of rules?
You
or
know,
no?
it was not on the agenda. I'm assuming that, is that an error that we did not put it on our agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. So this would be requested to be passed under suspension of rules.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
No.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
And Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, item 4.3 is also an action item, and this is the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to RS 8.5 for Carriage Hollow subdivision at 0 West Iowa Avenue for Toll, Idaho LLC for JARA-8 LLC. And the request would be to pass this under suspension of rules.
An ordinance determining that certain lands generally described as lying between Midway Road and Middleton Road south of Lake Lowell Avenue, comprising approximately 9.06 acres more or less, lay contiguous to the city limits of the city of Nampa, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said lands should be annexed into the city of Nampa, Idaho, as part of the RS 8.5 zone, declaring said lands by proper legal description, as described below, to be part of the city of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the city of Nampa, Idaho, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, providing an effective date, and directing the clerk of the city of Nampa to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, state of Idaho, and Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Make the motion to pass the preceding ordinances read under suspension of rules.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call?
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
No.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
So item 4.4 on the agenda is the first reading of a corrected ordinance, which is ordinance number 4392, in order to correct an omission in the original ordinance, which was for the zoning map amendment for RS 8.5 to RS 7 between Madison Road and Franklin Road, south of East Spruce Street and north of Ustick Road, and annexation and zoning to RS 7 for an easterly portion of 18360 Madison Road, and annexation and zoning to RS7 for 0 Madison Road for Ridgeview Estate subdivision in an RS7 zoning district between Madison Road and Franklin Road, south of East Spruce Street and north of Ustick Road for Mason and Associates, representing Michael Riggs, and this would also be requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance determining that certain lands commonly known as the easternly portion of 18360 Madison Road along Spruce Street, comprising approximately 0.40 acres more or less, and an unaddressed parcel on Madison Road between Ustick Road and Spruce Street, comprising approximately 3.2 acres more or less, lay contiguous to the city limits of the city of Nampa, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said lands should be annexed into the city of Nampa, Idaho, as part of the RS7 zone, declaring said lands by proper legal description, as described below, to be part of the city of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, providing RS7 zone designation for certain adjacent lands located within the city of Nampa, Idaho, comprising approximately 95.98 acres, more or less, determining that said zoning is in the best interest of the citizens and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city of Nampa, Idaho, rezoning said property from RS 8.5 to RS7, providing for recordation, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said annexed property to the official zoning and other maps of the city of Nampa, Idaho, and to designate all of the said properties as now being zoned RS7, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, providing an effective date, and directing the city clerk of the city of Nampa to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, state of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Okay, so I would stand for a motion.
So moved under suspension of rules.
Second.
Thank you, thank you. Discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And as we know, Section 5 of the agenda are our pending ordinances that will come forth at a later time. We're now going to move to item 6 on the agenda, which is new business items, and we're going to start with action item number 6.1, which isn't possibly an action item. It's a discussion on whether to place anti-panhandler signs in the city limits and/or pursue an anti-panhandling ordinance. And so I think, Bruce, we'll let you start with this one, and then we also have Chief Huff and Tom Point's here to answer questions regarding cost of signs and answer other questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Fellow council members, I saw a sign similar to these that are sampled here in Clarkston, Washington when I was driving through, and so I started looking around, and they're up across the country for good reasons that I didn't realize, as I think you all saw the letter from Reverend Bill Roscoe about this subject.
Was it in our packet? I never saw it.
Oh, you didn't?
I missed it. That's my fault.
Oh, anyway, he's much in favor of having signs like these. There's no special one sign. It seems every community comes up with their own design. And it's, as far as I know, there's no legal challenges to these signs. It's not an ordinance prohibiting this. If you pass an ordinance prohibiting panhandlers, you're going to be in a bit of a legal fight, most likely. But it's for good cause, because I think one community study said 93% of the money you give to a panhandler goes to support drug and alcohol addictions. We've got plenty of places that will help people that have the addictions and will provide food. I've had testimony from 2 people involved in organizations that say they offer free meals to people that are panhandling, and they've never had anyone take them up on it when they give them a ticket. Here, come down, and we'll give you a free meal and take care of you. So that's what I know. I support having some sort of sign out there, and I'd just like to have your discussion and thoughts on it.
Yeah, Mayor Kling. Councilman Scogg, I don't think anyone has what we're looking at. I'll read what this sign says, just for example. It says, "Want to help the needy, rather than give money to street solicitors, contribute to recognized local charities and benefit our community." That's what the packet that we have with the photograph. So I just wanted to let them know. Yeah. And I agree with Councilman Scogg on this issue.
Thank you.
Mayor Kling, I guess it's just discussion then. Is Chief Huff going to come up and speak, or?
I've asked both Chief Huff and then also Streets to give us an idea of what the cost of the signs might be.
Okay.
And then Chief Huff just to speak to any issues we have with panhandling.
I have a question specific to that.
Okay.
Chief, while you're coming up, at the intersection of Midland and Lake Lowell for the last couple of days, there's been some panhandlers with American flags and all the, veteran stuff. How would something like this affect, and how do they get an opportunity to stake out a corner for that length of a time?
Well, it's like Councilman Scogg was talking about. I mean, we have to be, it's a fine line to be walking on the First Amendments on that. So basically, the way the current ordinance is in the city, it's 611, subsection C is what we would deal with the panhandling. If they're not impeding traffic, if they're standing on a public sidewalk and they're letting people pass freely and all that, then that's fine. What I noticed what those folks were doing is they had some PVC pipe with like a bag on the end, and they were reaching out, which is that's getting a little dangerous there with what they're doing. So they have no city license to do that, and as far as staking out the corner, it's just as long as they're not impeding traffic, which again some of their signs were getting into the roadway, so we would just stop and educate them to get their signs.
So panhandlers, my understanding is they can't step into the street.
Correct.
Otherwise, they can't be cited.
Correct.
At that point.
Yes.
So if they're not in the street, if they're on the curb,
Or impeding people walking down the sidewalk, they have to step out of the way or stopping people. They can't be as cars pull up to the intersection, knocking on the window or spraying window cleaner on there, or stopping traffic in any way. Just a little bit on the statistic wise, though, I had our analyst pull 3 years worth of data on it, and quite frankly, we haven't written a ticket for it in 3 years that we could find. Part of the reason is because the state statute overrides the city ordinance on that, and they were getting dismissed when they would go to court on them.
so the folks that were at the corner of Midland and Lake Lowell, they didn't have approval to be there?
No.
Okay.
And they didn't need it either, as long as they weren't blocking traffic or
Right.
anything.
And they would, I guess, fall under a charity designation or
I
benefit?
don't know how legit that is. They had some signs that said it was going towards something, but
Right.
As far as the sign issue, that you're talking about today, I mean, I would fully support that.
So if a sign like this was on that corner, would that stop them from being able to do that?
It wouldn't stop them, but again, I think it would. the way I understand it, it would be more of an education for the community to say, you know, you can put your money to an organization that you know where it's going to, not just, you know, throw some dollars in a guy that's holding a bucket out with PVC pipe.
And then there's those firemen that run up and down the street.
That's a whole nother topic.
So I was going to say, Madam Mayor, I was curious on that. I mean, it's the boots and so on, but they're in the streets. So how do you handle consistency? If you have a lawyer, I guess we have Attorney Skog over here, and Mr. Hilty. But I mean, I guess from a legal standpoint, I realize this is not a law-breaking thing. It's more of an educational. But then, if you allow the boots in the street, is there a challenge from a legal standpoint is my question.
Yeah, then the short answer is we would always encourage the police to, I mean, they've got some discretion in their enforcement, but they should be enforcing even-handedly, for sure.
However.
Really? Can you repeat that?
I think you woke him up, actually.
Fire chief just gave a thumbs up.
All right. Just a little bit of research real quick, though, on United States versus Reed is what I was looking up this weekend. You know, it's very plain, you know, the First Amendment is, panhandling falls under that First Amendment protection. Again, the key word is that they're not accosting anybody or blocking their route of travel. That's when it becomes into the, you know, something that we could enforce. So, but as far as the signs, the police department would be very supportive of that.
Thank you. Councilman?
Mayor.
Woman, I should say.
Thank you. I was interested in the definition of panhandler because I was obviously wondering too about our fire department and being consistent because again, that's sending a message out to our community and we are the ones who get to answer to that. I'm okay with the signs as long as the panhandling is not a crime. They can't get a ticket for it. Unless, of course, they're doing what they're not supposed to be. Because I do want our citizens to feel safe when they're walking up and down the streets and not feel accosted or that they can't do that. One of the things I was concerned about was one of the signs that was shown as an example was give to local charities. And that's all great, but how does a citizen know where the local charities are or what they are to give to? Because we don't want to discourage giving to the charity, so making that available. And then the other question I would ask is how do we determine where the signs would be placed?
Midland and Lake Lowell.
You can stand there.
Right. So needless to say, that is something that we would need to discuss. I did ask the streets and Tom to give us an idea of what it would cost. And so if the general consensus of the council is, yes, this is something that I'd like to address, then we could address what it would cost and then potential process to identify locations.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
Mayor, Council. So we do, in our streets department, we do have the ability to make our own signs with the reflective materials. And we also have the crews to install them. So the going rate for this type of size of sign would be about $180 per sign roughly. And that includes our labor to install it. So, and yeah, we would, if council decides this would be a direction to go, we would like some guidance on where would be an appropriate place to put them. You know, because you know these we could put them in one place and the panhandling could move to a different location. And also just some general discussion on how much you'd like to invest in total for these types of installations.
Thank you, Tom.
Madam Mayor, fellow council members, I thought about this a bit, and I think a motion would be appropriate at some point. Let's put out 10 signs, leave it up to the chief of police for his discretion as to where to place those, and also which signs or types to pick by looking at other communities, because we'll all have different opinions on the colors and the words up here, because we're an opinionated bunch, but that's what I'd like to get to.
And then the funding mechanism. So we're assuming, I don't believe that this was currently in the budget, so we'd have to identify how to fund those 10 signs. Unless we have, do you have ideas, Tom?
Well, so it'd be looking at about $1,800 for that much. So we'd look at our operating budget. I'm sure we could work that out of our operating budget for this request. Yep.
And Madam Mayor, fellow council members, I think it's a good investment if we're encouraging people not to help people with their addictions. And it's advisory. I'd like to see the signs go up.
Mayor, question. The land on either side of the off-ramps of the freeway, because that's typically where you see a lot of the panhandlers. I know when I was living in another state, they had done a mini-series on the panhandlers, and they were making in excess of $60,000 to $75,000 a year by standing on the corner. And so of the ramps, I was wondering, is that our property? Does that belong to ITD? How does that work?
Mayor, Councilwoman Levi, so the ramps themselves are the state ITD's jurisdiction. We don't have access to place signs on those rampways.
So these would be totally inside the city?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess I have a question for the council. Understand, it sounds as though there's the will to move forward on this. Would we like to bring this back as unfinished business in about 2 weeks with some recommendations? Or would it be the will of the council to just go ahead and defer to the police department and streets to work together on sign designs? Would you like them to come back to you with that, or just defer to them fully and just say that you authorize 10 signs at approximately $180 a sign, and we defer to the police and streets department to identify the locations and design? How would you like to proceed? Bruce, do you have an idea?
I like that, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
So unless there's an objection, any objections to something like that?
Just a question. Is there any opportunity for a nonprofit charitable to actually pay for some of this signage? I guess, did Bill Roscoe or anyone, I'm sure that was probably not even discussed, but I'm just wondering if there's any, I mean, I know they would love to service these folks rather than them staying out there on their own. I'm just asking. If there wasn't any discussion, Bill, then, I mean.
No discussion for me. I approached
Councilman
Reverend
Scott.
Roscoe and asked him his opinion. He didn't approach me.
Okay, thanks.
He did support the idea, though, of not giving to those type of people out
Yeah.
there, and the reasons for it.
Yeah.
I think it was in an email that we received.
Well, I mean, my opinion, and then I'll be quiet, I'm just expressing my opinion. I've always been against just giving monetary over to folks. If during a winter month or whatever, a blanket or buying them food at a restaurant and actually giving it to them, something of that sort, to me, that was, is a much more better method of doing that. So I am in favor of discouraging just monetary handouts. And I realize you can't have a long sign that's going to explain all that, but I mean, that's my preference.
Mayor Kling, my observation is, why, I was trying to figure out why Midland and Lake Lowell, and it's because there's no signal there. The traffic moves too quick when the signals are there. When it's not, and it's start, stop, they have a captive audience, and so that's a pretty major intersection. If that location is identified as one of those stops, I think that they would probably move up to Greenhurst then in Midland, or, someplace else until a signal is placed. But I think a sensitivity to proper locations to try to discourage it. When we see them out there, whether they're at the Edwards Cineplex area or elsewhere, I don't think that it's going to go away. But I think, again, it's the education of the public. If that's what we're trying to achieve here, is there a better way to do it, or is this the best way? Is the question.
Yeah. And I would really lobby for and we have the Statesman and the Idaho Press here, but I mean, as far as if this happens, not that they need to take a stand one way or the other, but as far as to educate the public to what Councilwoman Levi said, as far as the charities that are available for people to donate to.
Okay, so it sounds like the will of the council is to go ahead and authorize our streets department and Chief Huff Police Department to work together and identify a solution. Do you want them to come back, or do you just want them to move forward?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move forward and
Okay.
defer to them. I don't know if you want a formal motion?
Yes.
All right, I'll make the motion. Fellow council members, I'll hereby make the motion that anti-panhandling signs be placed in the amount of 10 somewhere in our city at the discretion of the police department, chief of police, in a design to be chosen by the police department, not to exceed approximately $180 in cost for each sign.
$1,800,
Or, what did I say?
180.
Per sign.
Per sign.
Okay, per sign.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor, if I may, Chief Huff, you're okay with this? We're putting it on your shoulders to,
I was just sitting back there thinking maybe, you know, with 10 signs, maybe to put them in, I mean, the goal is for education, you know, educating the community, and maybe put them in, you know, welcome to the city of Nampa, and have something on already an existing, you know, sign right there.
Yeah.
Because like you said, if you put them at Greenhurst and Midland or whatever, they're just gonna move down to the next one, and the ultimate goal is to, you know, educate the community.
I like that.
So,
So you're okay, though, as far as
oh,
taking
absolutely,
responsibility?
absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
Thanks.
Now, okay with the motion, hopefully no more than 10 signs. I just want to see 10 turn into 20, into 50, and Nampa be known for signs on every intersection. So I think 10 in strategic locations is reasonable, yes.
Any further discussion? I think, can we do all in favor? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to item 6.2 on the agenda, and this is to authorize the Public Works Director on behalf of the City of Nampa to submit comments from the City Council, if so desired, on the Communities in Motion 2040 2.0 Compass Plan. So this is on here in the event that the council says, you know what, I feel like we need to submit a comment during the open comment period. The open comment period ends on October 21st. And Tom, I'm probably saying what you are going to, so please feel free.
Mayor, Council, yes, so this is the council's opportunity, if you'd like to submit a comment on behalf of the city for Communities in Motion. You heard from Jeff on what Community Motions is, and you've also heard from Jeff. They work very closely with Compass and have vetted out the plan. One thing that additional that I want to bring forward is that we've already commented. The City Council did authorize us to comment on this already on State Highway 16, if you recall, a few meetings back. We're asking for a southern connection on the off-ramp for the interstate. So if you have any comments additional that we'd like to submit on the city's behalf, we'd be glad to hear them.
And Tom, if I remember correctly from our discussion, you really didn't have any recommendations for any additional comments, because you felt like at this point, we're good where we are.
That's correct.
But as it was forwarded to council, I think about a week ago, we just wanted to give you opportunity, if you had comments that you felt like needed to be made.
We have representation on the board, so I think we're fine.
And also, Mayor Kling, Bruce, the Board of Directors of the Compass did approve, and the 2040 public comment period, so we're good, yeah.
Okay. I think that answers that question, and we'll move on to item 6.3 on the agenda, and this is to authorize the mayor to sign the Idaho Vehicle Inspection Program Station Agreement with Appalus Technologies, Inc., to supply the automotive emissions testing equipment for Fleet Services Division. And this agreement has been reviewed and approved by legal counsel, and Doug is here, but Tom?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, so give credit to Doug and Fleet here for this idea. That's a good idea, save a little funds for the city. Instead of going and getting our emissions test done at a corner lot that you sometimes see when you're driving around, we were going to bring this in-house, and just with the equipment that's provided to us is free of charge as long as we are testing at least 25 vehicles a year, and we're projected we usually do over 100 emission tests a year. This will save the fleet staff some logistical challenges of driving to and from the locations and being more prompt on knowing when something failed. And so I think he's come up with a good plan here. We're asking for support to enter into an agreement with Appalus Technology to supply the emission testing equipment.
And the cost per emission test has moved, would be,
$8.
was it 8 versus 11?
$8 versus
11 to 15.
11 to 13.
So, Madam Mayor, I'm being a little facetious here, but is this a revenue opportunity for all city employees to drive through and raise? Is this not a moneymaker, Doug? Okay. Okay.
And that was my question too. I mean, is there an ROI for us to see you do this? But really, actually, I had my vehicle inspected today. I know it's $11 if you pay cash. But I was going to ask, there's no problem with a self-inspection, a process like this? I mean, do they get the same state, they go through the same state process that the other vendors are currently going through?
Mayor and council, I can answer that. I'm actually a state certified emissions inspector, and as a municipality, we have the latitude to inspect and repair our own vehicles.
But you're not going to go beyond that and allow a service to the public?
Not that I'm aware of. No, that's not the intent.
That's not,
I was
that's not
being
the
facetious,
intent.
sir,
Yeah,
Councilman.
but that's not the intent.
Exactly.
Because there are, there's like Larry Chevron on 12th, that's a revenue source for them.
Yeah.
This is really, as much as anything, it's going to be time-saving. To be able to have, while the vehicles are there, it's easy to do this inspection versus going and sitting in line somewhere else and taking those vehicles off-site. So it's really, our greatest savings will be in time.
And we will coordinate the emissions tests with our normal maintenance. And oftentimes now, not oftentimes, but it's not unusual for me to find out that a registration has been revoked after a vehicle has failed emissions test after the fact. So we will avoid that as well.
Thank you.
Mayor Kling, I'd make the motion to authorize this request.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Doug, thank you for your excellent work and thinking outside the box. It's appreciated. Thank you.
Good job, Doug.
Okay, item 6.4 is an action item to authorize the mayor to sign a 24-month amended agreement for the lease of wastewater treatment capacity and connection fees and issue an industrial waste acceptance permit addendum for leased capacity with Admiral Beverage Corporation with an expiration date of September 30, 2020. The agreement has been reviewed and approved by legal counsel. And you may remember recently, since I've been here, we did an agreement and there's a need for further capacity.
I'll make a motion to approve the request.
Second?
Any further discussion? Sorry, Nate. Thank you. Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
6.5 is an action item to authorize the mayor and public works director to sign a task order, sign a task order for consultant services with Brown and Caldwell for the Nampa wastewater program fiscal year 2019 program management services.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion?
Question.
Yes.
Sorry, had to. So what I want to know about is the Brown and Caldwell has been named as the wastewater management program facilitators. Now, when we sign a contract with them in terms of more money or funds that we give them, what is the funds that are the funds taken from the IDEQ money that has been approved, or is the city paying that?
Mayor, Councilor, the program management is primarily through the wastewater enterprise, so ratepayers.
Oh, I see. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so when we give them the allotted funds, does the Brown and Caldwell give part of that to the system workers and charge them an administrative fee? It's like a subcontractor situation.
This, Mayor, Councilor, the second half of your question, so Brown and Caldwell does have sub-consultants at times,
Right, that's what I'm referring to.
and so they would pay the sub-consultant for their services performed, and Nampa pays Brown and Caldwell for services performed by Brown and Caldwell and the sub-consultant. So we try not to give them anything that they haven't earned.
Yeah, I know, but that's just like me, if I reach out and give somebody some money, I charge them for giving them that money, or an administrative fee, or whatever. Okay, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay, Mayor, Counselor, yes.
So are they making money off of money, is what I'm saying?
No. The prime consultant does not mark up the sub-consultant rates. We actually review, when we have a sub-consultant contract, we will have an invoice that includes Brown and Caldwell's time and their sub-consultant's actual time. There is no markup.
I
As
see.
you would see under a construction contract, for example. Professional services with Nampa, I have not seen that.
So does Brown and Caldwell have a bidding process for the best or for the most equitable project, contractors or whatever? Or do they just pick what's they believe is necessary for us?
The mayor, counselor, so and we're still talking the program management, may I clarify?
Sure.
Are we talking in general, or is this specific contract scope of work before you?
I'm leading up to this right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mayor, Counselor, in general, if you're going out for engineering services, so the state, Idaho's rules, it's qualification-based selection. So a consultant will come forward with their team, and then you'll review those teams, you'll select one, and then you'll sit down and negotiate with them for fees and scope. And if you can't agree on the fees and scope, then you toss them out and you go to your pool of consultants. Now,
Yeah. So the number that we get, the amount of money that's needed, the funds, is after they have concluded that they're going to take this direction for that project. They can say 18 million and that's it. Or in reality, it's actually 15 million. I'm just trying to clarify.
so Mayor, Counselor, on a qualification-based selection, you select the team without the price.
Oh,
And if the consultant comes to you and says, I want 18 million, and you feel like it's 15, you tell them to no.
oh,
Go
I
away.
see, I see. Okay.
So let me, Mayor, if I may just follow up. So when you say we tell them no, so who is on the team that determines whether that's a fair price for the scope of the work?
Mayor, Counselor, it often with public works projects, we have a selection committee.
Who would normally, like for this type of proposal, who would be on the selection committee? Say this is a brand new, where we've not used Brown Caldwell before.
Okay, Mayor and Counselor, so we're back to this scope. This scope is a project management for wastewater.
Right.
This is a continuing contract that was
Right.
selected years
2009.
ago.
2009, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
And so that would be prior, I can definitely find that information, but I do not know who was on that committee.
Right, and what I'm getting specific, this is $410,229 for this, is what the request that's being made at this time, is that correct?
Mayor and Counselor, yes?
Okay, so my specific question was who determines whether that is a fair price for the work to be done?
Mayor and Counselor, that would be Public Works,
Okay, so
including myself.
And you guys knowing from past experience and so on, or
Yeah, Mayor.
checking with other municipalities, does that ever happen?
Mayor and Counselor, yes, and when we review Brown and Caldwell's contracts for the last 3 years, they range from, I believe last year was authorized at 410,000, and if you go back to 2016, it was 435,000.
Took a cut in salary. All right, now I got you. Okay, very good, thanks.
And this is not to exceed, correct?
Right.
Correct, Mayor.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? So it's been moved and seconded. This was the discussion. If there's no further discussion, we'll move to roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, item 6.6 on the agenda we did earlier, and now we're at 6.7 on the agenda, and this is to authorize the mayor to sign a professional services contract for the building inspection services not to exceed $100,000 for the Nampa Building Safety Department, and Patrick's here to explain it.
Mayor and Councilman, we have been unable in the last 9 months to hire an additional combination building, structural building inspector due to the national market climate. It's really impossible to find anybody at this point that it has the correct certifications and knowledge to be able to hand them a pickup an iPad and go out and do inspections. So given that we have such a high volume of inspections, 18 to 25 inspections per day for each of our 7 inspectors and our inspector supervisor, we want to be able to have people have time off, be able to go to doctor's appointments. And as we come into winter, where it's hard to get across town, and we still have, many inspections, our inspection volume hasn't gone down. We've reached out to a local consultant, Maine Consulting Services. Jim Maine is a licensed architect. We have a standard professional services agreement for a $60 an hour rate. We'll provide, and we'll pay mileage as well. And then we will provide the iPads, and we will give him his assignments. We're promising a minimum of 10 hours a week. It could be 15 or 20. But in order to have him on call, we're offering that retainage. If there's an instance over the holidays, or he's out of town for vacation or something, we've written in there that we won't pay the minimum for those weeks. So we really need these consulting services to be successful and be able to provide same-day inspections, because we don't have the luxury of rescheduling to other days. If somebody calls in before 7, we have to be there and perform. So I'll stand for any questions.
Mayor Kling? I was going to give you a quick idea of how you can save some time and just allow our drawings to go through without, with our work, but I won't go down that path with you. I thought I saw, there he is. Okay, hi, Jim. Does Jim live in Nampa? How far is he traveling to be able to perform these services here?
Jim lives down toward Kuna.
Okay, so be coming across county line anyway?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, and I think I saw where you had highlighted the travel, his coming here to provide a service. Are we paying for him to come here and then to go home afterwards?
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
It's like any professional service agreement where you hire a consultant to, perform services for you.
Okay. So $60 an hour, is that, so he's just working on an hourly basis then?
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, yes,
10,
that's
10,
correct.
10-hour minimum per week?
10-hour minimum per week. We currently average, with an average salary and benefits, we're right around $42 to $48 an hour for our in-house people to provide those services.
Right.
And then maintenance on our vehicles and things like that.
Thank you.
So if I may, Madam Mayor, so what's the projected duration of this agreement?
Well, the contract envisions 11 months from when we sign it. We will
Right,
likely
I saw
sign
that,
it
but I
in
mean, are you looking beyond that, or for us to hire more inspectors, or what's our projected, say, 5 years from now? What are we looking for?
I wish my crystal ball was a little
I know.
clearer. However, I think that we're going to see several more months of growth, over a year worth of growth. This is a short-term fix. If we decide that we're able to find somebody full-time, we may talk to Jim and terminate the contract. We have several larger projects, and with all of the residential we also have, we'd like to send Jim out on larger commercial footings, larger, more technical projects.
Okay.
Rather than on the residential, we can send some of our less experienced staff out to perform, house footings and house framing and things like that.
And Madam Mayor, just mainly in education for me, so what's your upfront time? When do you know, how do you schedule, I guess is what I'm saying, your inspectors? How much front time do you have to be able to schedule? So like in this case, Jim, what type of notice would his folks have, him or whoever, as far as to knowing if they need to come in on a Monday morning and do an inspection, or what happens? What's the procedure, process?
Mayor and Councilman Brunner, we envision these would be on longer duration commercial jobs where we might set up a schedule with that contractor that we're going to be out there during,
Okay.
Every day
So you have
during
plenty of
footings,
notice.
and then maybe 3 days a week on structural, for a couple hours a day, things like that. So we'll have more of a structured schedule for the consultant, and our regular staff would then take the ad hoc things that are either requested online or requested on our phone line prior to 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, Councilman Haverfield.
I'm trying to be respectful. I'm getting your approval first. Technical. Does Jim carry errors and omissions insurance?
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, he does not need errors and omissions insurance for this. He would be performing under the authority of the building official, so I would be
So you
giving him
assume-
that authority. We would have state tort law for anything that would come up, and then he's also required to have his own liability insurance to cover himself.
Liability as far as out on the job site?
Yeah, if he, trips and falls down, or just.
So general
or just,
liability.
like general liability for either his own injuries or something like
But
that.
an error made, and again, I know Jim, I've known him for years. Are we getting Jim, or are we getting Jim's assistant? Getting Jim? Okay.
Yeah,
That's
we're-
good. He's
we're
worth
getting real
$60 an hour. But again, so errors and omissions, there's no concern about an error in judgment, or, that's where, I mean, he's not a designer, obviously, but there are still errors potentially in judgment of a review causing additional time, potential cost to the project.
Right. Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, we envision that he would only be doing inspections on already approved permit drawings that have been vetted through our plan review process and designed by state licensed architects and engineers. So
Okay.
the
That's back to my first point,
So-
just allow our drawings to come through and we'll be fine.
Well, we could do peer review and send it out house. It just, we have the same problem with, on that subject, I'd be willing to talk to you at another time, but we also are down an advanced plan reviewer in that department of our building department as well. So we don't have enough staff. We're doing the best we can with the resources we have and the volume we have.
So as an example, he'd be on the student center at NNU as one of the commercial projects, the larger projects that might be happening within the city limits, not outside the city limits.
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, we only have jurisdiction within the incorporated city limits of Nampa.
Okay.
I think part of the reasoning behind this has to do with, we have a couple of large projects, and we realize that we need to keep them moving quickly, and having someone highly qualified that understands it, that could get out there and keep us moving down the road is the goal, to keep these projects moving forward. But, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay. Thank you. So I would stand for a motion to authorize the mayor to sign a professional services contract.
So moved.
Second?
Any other discussion? And roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And our last new business item for the evening is to authorize the mayor to sign a contract not to exceed $100,000 for the fiber optic project. Patrick.
Mayor and Council, this is a project that envisions, let me get my map out. So we have a need to bring fiber optic cable from the Hugh Nichols Public Safety Building and then down across Third Avenue and then down 12th Avenue over to the First Interstate Bank Building to accommodate engineering's, actually the full build-out of that building, rather than just bringing in twice. When we put this on the agenda, we didn't know quite what it would cost. We have engaged Item and Associates engineers to design the fiber optic project. Some envisions utilizing existing conduit in the right-of-way, and then along Napa Caldwell Boulevard there, we would be going about three and a half blocks, going up poles where we actually already have an easement and a pole agreement with Idaho Power, and we're able to utilize that existing agreement to add this additional fiber optic cable. Then we'd take it down 12th Avenue, and then we would bore underneath 12th Avenue and then into the building, and then into the main server room for that, and then that would enable us to handle the near-term occupancy and the full build-out of the building. So our current, we'd like to keep the not-to-exceed $100,000. The engineer's estimate's about $57,000 for the work, and it's $4,000 for their fee proposal for the design. And we would be designing it this week and going out to bid next week, and then likely starting the project toward the tail end of the 5th of November, pending game material in.
Any questions? Okay. I would stand for a motion to approve.
Mayor, council, I make a motion to approve the mayor to sign a contract not to exceed $100,000 for the fiber optic project.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Hoagland?
Yes.
Okay, and I would also stand for a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74206 1D to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 of Idaho Code.
So move.
Second.
Who was the first?
Darrell, Councilman.
It's my disguised voice, yeah.
And who was second?
And is that a roll call or all in favor?
It was second.
You were second. Roll call, thank you. Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hoagland?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And Brunner?
Yes.
And not expecting anyone to be here when we come back, thank you so much for your presence this evening and for being here.